When fake HOA enforcers fractured pregnant Hannah Caldwell's skull over a phony garden hose citation, tranquility turned to outrage. Their ringleader, HOA treasurer Ben Rainey, let his Falcon Ridge bullies terrorize neighbors with counterfeit badges and threats of foreclosure. But ex-Marine Mark Caldwell launched a high-tech manhunt that rocketed from his basement screens straight into an FBI takedown. Wait till you see how the hunter became the law, and why justice, at last, roared louder than their sirens. A warm Saturday twilight wrapped the quiet cul-de-sac of Dover, Delaware, in shades of bronze and lavender. Hannah Caldwell, 6 months pregnant and glowing with the small pride of a freshly weeded flower bed, hummed to herself while misting her roses. Sprinkler droplets caught the sun like tiny prisms. The scene felt almost too peaceful to be real. Peace shattered. A black SUV barreled around the corner, tires spitting gravel, blue strobes ricocheting off mailbox chrome. The vinyl lettering on its side read, HOA Enforcement Unit, a title no one in the neighborhood had ever heard of. The vehicle lurched to a stop so abruptly that Hannah flinched, water hose slackening in her hand. 2 men climbed out. Their starched shirts mimicked official uniforms, but the logos were unfamiliar, and the badges lacked the glossy seal that real officers carried. Mike Mason Haig, broad-shouldered, buzz-cut, marched forward with practiced swagger. At his side, lean-faced Jason Crowley scanned the porch as though mapping a crime scene that existed only in his mind. "Violation notice," Haig announced, waving a clipboard. "Unauthorized hose left in public view. Immediate fine, $500. The demand was so absurd, it froze Hannah's voice for half a second. Then, steadying her breath, she asked, politely, to see an official citation number. The sun highlighted the uncertainty in the men's eyes. Authority built on bluster cracks quickly under simple questions. It cracked now. Haig's jaw twitched. Without warning, he drew a heavy flashlight and jabbed it toward Hannah's shoulder. Pain shot through her upper arm, sharp and electric. The hose tumbled from her grasp. Instinctively, she curved an arm across her belly to shield the unborn child. Crowley seized that protective motion as defiance. He yanked her by the elbow and slammed her against the brick column at the edge of the porch. The sickening pop of bone meeting masonry echoed down the manicured street, followed by the startled scream of a little girl riding her bike 2 houses away. Hannah crumpled to the ground, consciousness dimming beneath waves of ringing silence. Red seeped between her fingers as she fought to stay awake for the tiny heartbeat she carried. 6 minutes later, 6 minutes that felt eternal, Mark Caldwell skidded his pickup to a halt, still in gym sweats, shoes untied. Years of Marine training did little to prepare him for the sight. His wife sprawled on the flagstone, eyes glazed, a dark stain spreading through her blonde hair. The SUV's taillights disappeared around the far bend like a phantom slipping back into shadow. Paramedics arrived almost in the same breath, but their quiet urgency, stern voices, stabilized neck brace, whispered phrase, compound cranial injury, drove home a new reality. Terror had invaded the idyllic street and left its signature in blood and broken brick. In that instant, every trimmed hedge and white picket fence felt suddenly insufficient against the darkness that had just announced itself. The official report was clinical, detached. The Kent County Sheriff's Department labeled the attackers as possible burglars impersonating security personnel. A vague pencil sketch was issued, but it disappeared into a pile of overlooked case files and automated phone trees. Days turned into weeks. No arrests, no updates, no real leads. Meanwhile, Hannah lay unconscious in a medically induced coma. Her life paused in a hospital bed surrounded by sterile beeps and silent prayers. And Mark was burning, not just with grief, with fury. He didn't sleep much anymore. One night, he gathered a half-dozen neighbors in the garage, its walls lined with tools and leftover baby shower decorations. At the center, his laptop projected grainy black and white footage from a Ring doorbell camera. The clip showed the same 2 men, Haig and Crowley, cornering Melissa Ray, an elderly widow down the block. One of them pointed at her porch while the other brandished a clipboard. She stood stiffly at her door, shaking her head. The audio was warped, but her tone was unmistakably afraid. The so-called violation? Her front wall had been painted an unapproved shade of beige. Then came the detail Mark had missed before, a falcon-shaped emblem printed faintly on the attacker's shoulder patches. He paused the frame, zoomed in. A stylized hawk in mid-dive. Falcon Ridge Security. The name rang a bell. Falcon Ridge wasn't a real police agency. It was a private security firm frequently mentioned in newsletters from the local HOA. The Homeowners Association Mark had long dismissed as harmless paper pushers. Digging deeper, Mark turned to Vanessa, a neighbor and civil attorney. She had once helped him dispute a fence height rule. Now she had something bigger. Apparently the HOA had quietly signed over enforcement authority to Falcon Ridge just 2 months earlier, granting them permission to issue on-the-spot penalties for neighborhood code infractions. That power had previously required a majority board vote, but the authorization was approved solely by one person, HOA Treasurer Ben Rainey. Mark remembered Rainey, nervous, balding, always sweating at board meetings, barely persuasive enough to argue for lawn care rate hikes, and yet somehow he'd single-handedly signed off on turning the HOA into a private enforcement regime. Coincidence? Not likely. Hatred stopped being emotion. It became fuel. In the basement, Mark recreated a space he hadn't needed in years. A mini-saki, a security operations center like the ones he used during cyber intel deployments. On a folding table sat 3 laptops, a stack of portable drives, and his old drone, Argo, collecting dust since his service days. He wrote scripts to intercept data feeds from neighborhood gate cams, cross-referenced license plates from HOA contractors against DMV records. He set up a radio wave scanner, hoping to catch unencrypted chatter from Falcon Ridge patrols, and in the quiet hours he scoured the dark web, searching for images, job listings, or chatter involving that falcon emblem. What began as grief had sharpened into something tactical, something focused, something ready. Mark wasn't just hoping for answers anymore. He was hunting for them. 8 days later, the silence broke. Mark's drone, Argo, hovered silently over a cracked warehouse district just outside Philadelphia. Nestled between silos marked Agri-Mix and rusted loading docks, the same black SUV appeared. No markings this time. But it was them, he was sure. Then came the voice, over an unsecured radio channel, distorted but clear. "Clean the safes. Feds are sniffing." That was all he needed. This was no local dispute anymore. It had crossed state lines. The operation had grown too big for HOA politics. So Mark made the call. He dialed someone he hadn't spoken to in over 5 years. Isaiah Brooks, ex-Marine, now full-time field agent with the FBI's Organized Crime Division. They'd once cracked encrypted comms in a bunker in Kandahar. Now, Mark was feeding him doorbell footage, drone surveillance, and a growing mountain of HOA violations tied to forged citations and threats of foreclosure. Families had been forced to pay thousands in fees or face legal action. Those who refused, intimidated into silence. Isaiah didn't hesitate. "You're in deep, brother, but you're not wrong." Within 48 hours, Isaiah convinced his superiors to greenlight a formal investigation. A federal task force was drafted. Mark was offered a consultant role. He accepted with 3 words, "This is personal." But just an hour before the scheduled raid, it all unraveled. Someone tipped them off. Ben Rainey vanished. The warehouse was cleared. Fake badges, HOA payment ledgers, even burner phones. Gone. All that remained was a trash barrel still smoldering with shredded documents. And something that made Mark stop cold. A hospital-issued phone. Hannah's. He hadn't seen it since the night of the attack. This wasn't just about escaping justice anymore. They were taunting him. Mark felt the last threads of patience snap. While the agencies filed reports and weighed jurisdictional risk, The people who nearly ended his wife's life were wiping their tracks clean, so he went public. Standing in his garage beneath a dangling work light, Mark opened TikTok Live. Calm, focused, voice steady. Until it wasn't. He showed ring footage, named names, explained the entire extortion network, how HOA fines had turned into organized shakedowns, how Falcon Ridge security was nothing but a front. And then he did the unthinkable. He posted high-resolution shots of the two attackers, Haig and Crowley, and announced a $5,000 reward for any information that would lead to their capture. It was raw. It was emotional. It was real. The video hit 1.2 million views in 6 hours, and the comments started flooding in. From Delaware, from Jersey, from Maryland. Stories, sightings, addresses, even footage. Mark had turned the tide. The system was slow, but the internet? The internet was furious. The internet's fury became a net that nothing could slip through. Click by click, anonymous tips stacked into a precise trail, and the FBI moved fast. Faster than Falcon Ridge expected. The roadblock. At dawn on a Thursday, agents flooded the I-95 corridor north of Baltimore. Traffic halted in a rolling wave of flashing lights. When a white box truck with blurred, temporary plates approached the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, state troopers signaled it to the shoulder. A moment later, unmarked SUVs closed the gaps, front and rear. Inside, the scene matched every file Mark had mailed the Bureau. Mike Haig, Jason Crowley, and 3 hired enforcers huddled in mismatched body armor, each vest stitched with a homemade Falcon patch. Beneath a plywood false floor, officers uncovered 146 skimmers and stolen bank cards, dozens of blank citation forms pre-signed with forged HOA initials, a folder of counterfeit property seizure warrants, complete with seal imitations, black and white stills from the arrest ricocheted across social media before sunrise, accompanied by the hashtag #RealHOAJustice, the flight that never left. While the truck was impounded, airport marshals in Newark homed in on a lone traveler wearing an unseasonably heavy jacket at Terminal C. Ben Rainey's passport read one way to Panama City. Tucked in an inside pocket was a ledger of crypto wallet keys linked to $2.8 million in illicit fines. He never reached the gate. The day in court. 4 weeks later, the federal courthouse buzzed like a hive. Hannah, hair swept back to reveal a healing scar, sat beside Mark in the front row. When the clerk called United States for Haig et al., the room settled to a hush so complete every page turn echoed. The prosecutor laid out 7 felony counts: racketeering, wire fraud, extortion, assault with a deadly instrument, and more. Jurors needed just 6 hours to render verdicts. Sentencing followed at once. 35 years each. No chance of parole. Applause, first tentative, then thunderous, rose from neighbors who had reclaimed their homes and peace of mind. Some wept openly. Even the bailiff's eyes glistened. A new safeguard. Outside on the courthouse steps, camera crews gathered as Mark spoke with quiet conviction. Anyone who hides violence behind a badge, real or fake, will answer to the real law. Within days, a Delaware congressman introduced the Hannah Act, establishing nationwide standards and background check requirements for any private group granted HOA enforcement powers. Quiet evening, full circle. That night, cicadas hummed over the Caldwell's porch. Hannah leaned her head on Mark's shoulder, the orange glow of string lights warming the space between them. "I heard you put a bounty on those guys," she teased, voice soft but lively again. "Didn't hunt," he answered, finally closing his laptop. "Just made sure justice found its proper name." For the first time in weeks, no sirens cut the air, no notifications pinged, only the gentle rustle of rose bushes and the deep, rare calm that settles when a neighborhood knows it is safe again.